All right, it's time to review Evil Dead 2013. Now, so we recently had gone through the Evil Dead TV series because I watched the first two seasons before, but I never really got around to watching the third season, so we pretty much just went back to the beginning and watched through all that. We even been watching a little bit Army of Darkness and the other two Evil Dead movies some. So I figured it was time, especially with the release of the new DLC for the Evil Dead game. I was just like, okay, well, it's about time to go ahead and watch 2013 because you hadn't seen it before, right?
No, I knew of it though.
Yeah. I remember I saw it in theaters. I don't think I ever watched it since then. Maybe once when I got the Blu-ray. So really, it's been nearly 10 years since I actually watched it. But I do remember it fairly well, especially going through it. Just the little specific moments. I was like, oh yeah, okay, now I remember it for certain. So this is kind of interesting because, well, I mean, it's produced by Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell and stuff like that, and even at the time, it seemed like, at least from what I remember, the general consensus from maybe hardcore fans probably didn't appreciate it that much because it's just like, well, obviously technically a remake. It's not Evil Dead. It's not Bruce Campbell and this and that. But I remember at the time, at least thinking, I was like, the film was actually kind of badass. I don't know why people didn't seem to like it so much. Like I said, maybe it's just a nostalgic thing specifically, and even though with this, especially with the Evil Dead timeline, there's always the idea is like, okay, well, is this kind of canon? And supposedly, I guess the director, maybe just a few years back, tweeted out to someone saying, be like, well, technically, it is kind of in the timeline. Like there are hints to show it takes place in that same universe. So it's really kind of finagling, that whole idea of whether or not it's canon or not. But we also kind of had that with the first two movies and how one's technically a remake because Evil Dead 2 that was technically in the sense a remake of the first movie, but some people would say be like, well, you can actually kind of connect it in a way. So it's always just been all over the place like that. But regardless of that, I mean, I consider it to be pretty gnarly. It's like the first two, gnarly in that sense, but obviously it has that more grounded, more a little bit more just not as goofiness to
Mm-hmm.
it, to where it just hits a little bit differently than the older ones. So just walking away initially, how did you feel about it when you were watching it?
Um, I remember hearing about it,
Hmm.
and I was, you know, so attached to the original and Army of Darkness. I'm like, I don't know, but it really wasn't bad.
Hmm.
I yeah, there was that little teeny bit. I was like, no. But yeah, I definitely noticed that it wasn't like super duper funny. And I saw a couple things. I'm like, okay, that's kind of, I feel like that's like call out to prior
Hmm.
and such. So it really wasn't horrible.
Yeah, yeah. So Jane Levy is the main girl in this, and she's basically out there with her friends. They're taking her out there and her brother, basically trying to go cold turkey because she's a bit of an addict, and so it's just playing off of just trying to get her off of drugs. And then so they take her out to the cabin, just try to, let her just try to get out of her system, this and that. And of course, that's when all shit goes down. They find the book in the basement and all of that, and it's identical. It just doesn't have the face on the front of the book and all that. And so the one guy he winds up, reading a couple of passages from it and therefore unleashes the evil. And so, what I find very interesting about this one here, again, is just how like raw and just gritty and yet just so insane it actually just hits. It's like once she's out in the woods, she starts getting chased by the evil and stuff, and so they have a scene that's very similar to the, if you remember the scene with the tree in the original. It's similar to that, but not quite.
I
It's
saw
very,
that, yeah.
it's just very, just like, ugh, like damn, like it's just absolutely gnarly of a film. And like I said, once you get into that, and once you get into like the body horror type of stuff, and just some of the slicing and all this and that, again, it does hit a bit differently, like I said, from the previous ones, especially knowing that they went to a more comedic approach. And especially in the TV series, there's definitely some gnarly stuff there, but knowing it has a more cartoony nature, it doesn't like make you feel like ugh, like that as much if you can stomach it. This one, like I said, of course, once you get into certain effects and stuff, it definitely hits where you're just a bit more like, ugh, like I don't want to know what that feels like at all. Was there a particular standout one that you can go ahead and mention if you wanted to? That
Um, let's like body horror. We're
yeah,
talking.
like any wounds to the body, like any slices or anything like that.
Um, her doctor friend when she got possessed and she was sitting in the bathroom and
Yeah,
mutilating herself. I'm like, that's
yeah. I mean,
bleh.
see, that's the thing about
And
this
then the
film.
car towards the end when the car like falls on her arm.
Yeah, and she has to rip it off like that. Like
Yeah.
that in particular, it's just like,
Oh, and the meat slicer and she's
oh
the
yeah,
one
she has
girl
to
cuts her
cut.
arm off.
Yeah,
I'm
she
like,
has to
yep,
cut the arm off.
there you go.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing you could say about this one is that the look of the film is very, very good. The way to utilize the lighting, like
Yes, I did mention that a couple of times,
it,
didn't
it
I?
really does. Is a great looking film. Like even earlier on when she's just outside, just walking around in circles in the rain, just the cloudiness and just again, just all the lighting effects. Like yeah, that one shot when he first walks into the bathroom and the lights are flickering, you could just
Yeah,
hear the
the
faint like little, like just like little
yeah,
slicing
because
and
it was the
shit.
guy with the glasses, right? That
Yeah.
goes the yep. I said that looks really cool.
Yeah, the lighting, the sound effects are pretty much all perfection. I would say
Mm-hmm.
is utilizing that, and like once she gets possessed, and then once you have all these crazy shots of her like down in the basement. Once they lock her down in there, her eyes, and just honestly like everything, like just going back and just rethinking about it, it's just it's some of the best I've seen as far as again just that lighting and the effects and the ambiance of everything that they use inside the cabin. It's just like very very well done. That's what and when Jane Levy when she's all possessed and shit, like she definitely they definitely use her well as far as the voice, as far as some of the lines they give, and it's just like it again just gnarly. It's just one of those films that I would say it hits very effectively for sure. As a more, like I said, a little bit more grounded, a little bit more horror-esque version of like those initial like two films and stuff like that. Um, and especially once you get down to the towards the end, like with the climax and shit, when she just kind of when she comes back, and then you have the blood rain and all of
That
that,
was
and
cool.
it just leaves like again just very impressive visuals. Like you see that shot when she finally chainsaw hers in the face, and it just like it's just yeah just fucking just gnarly. That's the perfect word to describe it. This to describe this film. It's just absolutely gnarly. As far as like the side characters and stuff like that, like in the originals, they're not really much to them. Like the one blonde girl, she is just kind of there. Like she doesn't really have much
That
going
was the
on.
girlfriend, right, of the brother.
I believe so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the with the chop the arm off. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, she doesn't really have much there in particular, and yeah, you have the one nurse girl. Like I said, she kind of sets up that stuff as far as sedating her, as far as telling her what to do to try to keep her off, and that yeah. And at first they're just like, oh well, she's just freaking out, man. She's just trying to get off the drugs and shit. And while initially at first I can kind of understand that, once a couple things start to happen, you're just been like, no, motherfucker, you need to wake up. No, shit's going down. Like that's not a disease. Like her eyes and shit, and the
Yeah,
crazy
I gave her
voices.
enough tranquilizer to put out a
I'm
horse.
like, damn, if that's how it is getting off of drugs, then fine. You need to show that to everybody and be like, I don't want to touch that shit ever again. It's like meth. No, no, no. I'm done. I mean, that really is what it seems like. But yeah, again, just with the attacks, like when she first starts to stab him in the bathroom with the needle, and it's just like going in his face, and it's just like, I mean, that dude, like you said, he really does. He may seem like a bit of a punk in a way, but at the same time, this dude
He
takes
takes
some damage.
yeah,
He
then and then towards the end with the nail gun.
like you would almost think that he should almost be the final guy. Like he should be the new Ash just by how much shit he takes, and he manages to stick it out that close to the end, and then manages to finally die. I'm like, dude.
I hope they kind of add him in as a well, I don't know if you want to do him as a survivor
I mean, I
or one of
doubt
the
it, but at the same
Deadites
time,
because he was pretty gnarly.
but yeah, he takes some punishment. Absolutely, I'm just like, damn, like you actually are tougher son of a bitch than you look. Um, but yeah, it's just again, it just is a very fun film, and when you consider how it could potentially tie in, and I knew even after this film came out, there were talks of maybe doing another Evil Dead where they cross over, where Bruce Campbell and Mia kind of team up. I mean, I know they've been playing around with things for a long time, but I know we have Evil Dead Rise coming out, which I think is technically supposed to tie in to this one in some way. Maybe it's supposed to be like in a skyscraper and stuff. So I guess we'll just have to see exactly what happens there. And I know obviously Bruce Campbell's retired from the role for the most part. And so, yeah, again, any other particular standouts from this film that work for you?
Well, the only part that I didn't like that I actually saw coming sort of was the dog.
Yeah, I figured this much.
I mean they don't like show, but I'm like, and I turned to you and I said, "Do you remember if anything happens to the dog?"
Yeah, and I was like, I don't remember. It's been like
And
I don't
then a
remember.
couple minutes later, I'm like, "Oh man,
Yeah, it's always sad to see the
why?"
dog get it. It's like, yeah, it's like
It's
kill all the humans all you want to, but the
yeah. I'm
dog's
like,
like, leave
I don't care. Leave them alone. I don't care about these
yeah, I
things.
don't know. It's just something about it. It's just, I guess, something. It's just, because you go these movies, and it's like
I
that's just
should have
part for
known
the
better.
course. You just watch all
I
the
should have
scenes get
known,
slow, and that's just how it is.
but
But yeah, the dogs, they always just seem so innocent. It's just like, oh,
I did like. It was
But at
fun
least
that
the
they
way
named
that
it
they did
Grandpa.
it didn't. Yeah, it was named Grandpa. But at least, yeah, in this film, considering again the insane nature of it, it's like it wasn't too anything crazy. It's just like mostly just a faint visual. You don't get a whole lot to where it felt
No, you
like the
don't
dog suffered that
see
badly.
anything.
You
You
know,
don't.
they didn't go anything too over the top to where it's just like it doesn't hit too badly. Where you're just like, yeah, it's
It was just
unfortunate. But
basically
once
there.
everything starts to get going, you just kind of like,
Yeah,
it is what it is.
yeah,
But
yeah. But otherwise, it was the main the brother, and then I
mm,
mean the girl was possessed up until the end.
mm,
Um, they were really good, and the friend with the glasses, I liked him. I mean, I didn't really have anything against anybody else. It's just like, well, I guess you're just kind of there to advance the story. Sorry.
yeah. And I
And
think if I
yeah.
recall, I remember another complaint particularly was just like, well, why the hell did he read from the book for? I'm just like, well, I mean,
Yeah,
how's that
there was the
supposed
like, don't, it said don't do this.
It's like it's like
Oh,
I could just imagine like if it's like some like airplane satire type shit, be like he just looks at one page, he's like, don't read, flips another one's like, I'm seriously, don't read. Next page, motherfucker, don't read this shit, and then fucking it's like a pop up next time, arrows, don't read this shit, and it's like fucking reads it anyway. And next thing he pulls.
and the one other thing since you mentioned that was, I think in in the bathroom when the possessed nurse friend was attacking guy with glasses, and there's all kinds of that noise going on. I'm like, what is taking them so long to hear the noise going on in the bathroom to come and investigate?
Yeah,
That's like the only other thing. I was like,
I mean, that's the
what?
thing. It's just like again, like considering a lot of the cabin itself. You mean even all the older Evil Dead stuff? You just look at that cabin. It's like, man, it's such a small. Like it's almost like no bigger than that shed, and yet all this shit just manages to go down in this place. And then I could kind of like chalk it up to similar to Freddy versus Jason. Remember I said at the beginning, I'm like, how in the fuck did they not hear this dude stalking up the
Thump,
house?
thump,
Like
thump.
again, he goes
Yeah.
up those steps. It's gonna be and it's like, dude, what the fuck is going on? It's just, yeah. So you can't. It seems like it'd be very difficult to sneak anything by in this cabin. That's for sure. But yeah. Again, honestly, all in all, it's I would say it still holds up very well. I would say it definitely still earns the Evil Dead name. Again, just visually, just sound wise, so much stuff is very good in this. I think Jane Levy is also very very good in this. She just has a great look for this, like when she's like looking all just crazy and just
Mm-hmm.
all that shit. And then yeah, for sure when she gets her hand taken off, that's harder to watch as opposed to just watching Ash having to saw it off for some reason. It's just because you have to watch it get pulled off, and like I said, just the tendons being pulled.
Yeah.
It's almost like Child's Play 2. Remember when his hand got caught in that? And even
Yeah.
he's a doll at that point, but you see all the blood, you're just like, ugh. It's like you could just imagine how rough that would be. But I mean, she earns her victory by the end of it, and
That
yeah,
was pretty sweet. Yeah.
yeah. So all in all, I would say it still holds up very well. It's a solid 4.0. I would say, yeah, just a solid horror flick, and like I said, it earns the Evil Dead name. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm still partial to the originals and Army of Darkness and whatnot, but yeah, I can rewatch this alongside those, once in a while.
yeah. Especially like I said, we try to tie it in some way to the old timeline. And even as you said, you point out to when we were watching the show again, the one episode where you said it looked like it had been burned down.
Well,
So
yeah, when
that
they
could
were looking for
technically
the
be a
dagger.
tie-in.
So, yeah.
It's like yeah. So and again, I mean, even in that show, they did some time travel stuff. So you could always find some way to tie in any Evil Dead
Yeah,
lore. And
that made sense to me.
yeah, and it'll be interesting to see where they go with the next film, and if there's any more potential to even branch off more from there. I guess we'll see. But anyway, yeah, good solid time for
Hmm.
sure. So that will do it for our review of Evil Dead 2013. We hope you enjoyed, and we'll be back for more. See you next time. Bye for now.